Hello everyone and welcome to a tutorial. I haven't done a tutorial in a while, but I decided that I was gonna show you guys some like random set designing tips because that's one of my favorite things to do. And I don't really see a lot of like tip videos, like there are tutorials but not really tips. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking and start going into the tutorial. So, I have a lot of tips today. So basically I'm going to be dividing it into a materials section, like a modeling section. I have a couple extra things and then some just like general tips. So let's start with like how you're going to build your initial set. So you'll have an idea a lot of times of what you want the set to look like, but it's kind of hard to like start making it and you don't know how big to make it and stuff like that. So the first thing I normally do is I went ahead and I made just a like human model. I think I took the model out of a rig and then I just joined all the objects together. So it's the size of like what any normal Minecraft rig is going to be, and I just stick that in there and then I can have a reference to model the rest of the stuff. So the second thing I normally do, if I really need to like think about the set, if I'm not exactly sure, like if I'm not doing it from a photo reference or something, I'll usually open up Microsoft Paint and then I'll just go to like, the square tools and I'll be like, okay, let's say this is the room, and then I want another room over here. And then I usually do like stuff like this for doors. And I'll have like a door here, and then I can do a different color. And these can be like boxes or something. I don't know. But I normally go and do this if I need to think through a project, because that's sometimes easier than just jumping right into it. Do not save. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to say is, this is a pretty old set. This is from the Ambition song, but something that I used to do is I used to try to make everything pixel perfect, and I used to try to get everything completely perfect. All the pixels are pixel perfect. You can even see, I think, yes, every single Minecraft block is here. And maybe even on these two. Well, no, not really. But you can see that, like, everything is completely pixel perfect. And it looks really nice. But I would say that don't do that. And I know that some people would disagree with me on that. But I say that if you're making a set and you are just spending so much time on like making stuff look pixel perfect, you're going to, one, waste a lot of time, and two, you're going to get demotivated about making the set. You're just going to waste time on it, and you could be spending that time just like adding details and making the set a lot better. Another thing is that like sets are kind of a background thing. They help set the scene, but they don't really like you don't just like sit there if you're watching a music video and just stare at the set the entire time. You're usually watching the characters. So sets are very important on setting the scene, but you don't have to have everything look pixel perfect and completely in place because people really aren't going to notice it. Now if it looks like really, like, I don't think this is pixel perfect right here, actually. But like, see, I didn't even notice. I thought everything in this set was pixel perfect, but yeah, like, as long as it's not something disgusting, like, like super tiny, like, you don't have super tiny stuff, even that's not that bad. I think one of the worst things is that if you just have, like, a noise texture type of looking thing, like, if you have, I'm trying very hard to find this example. It's even just really hard to see, but like here you can obviously tell that stuff right next to each other is two different sizes, and that's kind of gross. But yeah, I would like try to make it look good, but it does not have to be perfect, is what I'm saying. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do okay, well, another thing is that idea about, like, spending less time on stuff, I got it from a guy named Ian Hubert. He is a Blender user. He is very amazing. Go look up his channel, and he has really great tutorials that are, like, super short. They're like a minute long, and just go watch that, and he has a lot of really great advice. It's basically just like, do not spend too much time making stuff perfect, because the overall picture is more important than the tiny details, basically. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get into the next section. So I'm going to be talking about, like, how to actually build out your set. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new scene. Don't save over my mess. So basically, once you have your set all done, or I mean, like, your basic concept all done, you're going to want to just create a cube. Like, so what I would used to do is, like, you know, I'm going to go click on this and then extrude, make sure it's all pixel perfect. But no, I don't do that anymore. What I do is I grab the whole thing, I scale it up to, like, whatever size I want, and then you extrude up if you're doing, like, a room or something. And another thing, like, this is kind of more advanced and stuff, but this also helps the normals be better, which... It's basically just a lighting thing, if you extrude up. If you want to learn more about normals, just go look up a video talking about them, because I don't know much about them and I don't want to explain it. So, the next thing I usually do is I separate the floor and ceiling, just so that it's kind of easier to mess with the walls, because you're not going to mess with the floor and ceiling very much. So the next thing is learn the modeling tools. So... like, I used to go in and I would hit subdivide a lot until I was like, okay, this is the area I want for a door. But that creates a lot of extra geometry, and it lags up your computer, and it doesn't really, it's not exact. So, something that you're going to want to learn is the edge loop, or I think that's what it's called. I don't know, but you hit Control R. And there you go. You have a loop that you can move around. It is very helpful. You can just go on adding stuff. Next thing is extrude, which I'm sure that most of you people know, but extrude. You hit E and you got a thing. Another thing that I use a lot is I, which inserts a thing, and then you can, like, extrude it more. What else do I have? I wrote these down, and now I don't know. So the next thing we have is merge. So this is something that I learned about way too late, and I don't know why, but basically, let's say that for some reason you needed to get, like, some faces off of this, to, like, edit more or something, so you would hit P, and that separates it into a completely separate object. And then let's say that you know, like, edited it and stuff. And then later on, you don't want this to be a separate object again, so you can select both, hit Control J. Now they're the same object, but then you'll notice that you have a problem here, and that's that they're not connected. So you can select everything, or just, like, the ones you want to connect, and you can hit M and by distance, and that just fixes that problem, which I know that a lot of people probably know about this, but I didn't for the longest time, so I am telling you about it now. So, another thing that I don't really like using this much, I would rather separate my objects, but it can be useful, is using V to rip. And that just kind of, like, separates the faces, and it depends on, like, which area you click it in. I don't really like using it very much, because it's kind of, it does weird stuff sometimes, so. But it can be helpful in certain situations. Alright, so the next thing is a couple modifiers that are really, really helpful. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the array modifier. So let's say that you have, like, a pole, like a metal, or actually a better example is a fence. So let's say you want to make a fence. So here, so you can go here and you can, like, you know, duplicate this, and then you can, like, do all this, but that can get really tedious. You can just keep doing it over and over again, and it's just going to take forever. So the best method of doing this is, let's say you wanted, okay, I did something, merge. Okay, so here we go. We have our fence. I'm going to go ahead and, just because I can add some more details. I can grab this thing and this. Oh yeah, another shortcut is Control L. That grabs anything that's selected, which is really nice. And then you can duplicate these things, and so basically you have one fence pole going on right here. So this is going to be your basic setup. You're going to go to the modifiers tab, come and hit the array modifier. As you can see, it's going the wrong way, so we're going to change the factor to 1. And I can see, so you have a problem right here. So the problem is that this isn't touching this. So the reason it's not touching is because this little section comes out a bit more, so you're going to want to either, probably the best way to do this would be to grab each one of these and then just maybe move them in a bit more until they just perfectly touch. And yeah, that's basically good. So then you can go in and you can just increase the count, and there you have a fence with as much detail as you want in like 5 seconds. So yes, that is one of the best things. I know that you can also set these along a curve. I'm pretty bad at doing this because it has to be kind of exact, but you can, like, you have this Bezier circle in here, you can come in here, change this to fit curve, select the Bezier circle, then you can add a curve modifier, select the Bezier circle again, and then you should be able to mess around with this a bit. It might not really work that well. You're gonna have to mess around with it a bit, but there's a way that you can, like, make things go around the circle. And yeah, I'm too lazy to actually figure that out right now. But there you go. That's a tip. You can look up more stuff about that if you want. Okay, let's see what else I have. Okay, so another thing is a mirror modifier, and this isn't really as important with sets, but the mirror modifier just makes things even. So, like, if you're modeling a character, then definitely learn about that, but sets is not going to be too important, but let's just say that you have, like, one side of a cube, and then you want to, like, you're going to want to add a mirror. It's not on the right side, and then you're going to want to, like, insert stuff. You can hit clipping. That's an important thing in the mirror modifier. And this is all very messy, and there's an extra face in there, but I'm just showing this as an example. And then you can, like, model it, and it should be symmetrical. I think, I actually have no idea. This is being really dumb. There we go. But yeah, mirror modifier, very helpful stuff. I use it all the time. Okay, so I think I talked about all the, like, modeling stuff and composition stuff. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is, like, materials and texturing. So for making textures, if you have a sprite, use a sprite. If you don't have a sprite, go find, I'm sure there are a ton of programs that you can use. I'm not really sure what, like, the best one is, but I mean, like, best free one. I think you can actually do stuff in Microsoft Paint, which is pretty cool. But anyway, the main important thing that you're going to want about doing textures is having, like, some way to wrap textures around. For example, tiled in both axes for a sprite, and then you can, like, see how the texture is going to look, which is really helpful. So I would recommend finding a program that can do that. And then the second thing is having a program that can do, like, jumbling and blurring. That's also kind of a preference thing. It depends what you want your textures to look like, but I normally like to do that because it gets a quick, easy, and, quotes, realistic looking texture. So anyway, for textures, I would say that like general stuff is learn about like color theory. That's just really important in doing stuff. But yes, learn about color theory and what colors go best together and certain things like that, because that's going to be what's going to make your textures look the best. So here I have some kind of weird sandstone texture. I'm just going to go ahead and I don't really even need to save this. That was just an example. So now I'm going to tell you how to build your materials with the textures that you created. So we're going to come in here, we're going to grab a plane, create a new material, hop over to the, actually we're going to split so that we have our UV editor. Shader editor. Alright, we're going to create an image texture. And let's grab some textures from somewhere. What's a good one? Okay, here we go. So we have like this tile texture. We're going to set it to closest. Most of you probably know this stuff, but I'm just going through each step. So we have this, but it doesn't look, like you can see the texture, but it doesn't look too amazing. So you can like mess with the specular and stuff, and I mean that looks better now, but it's still not the best that it can be. So I'm going to show you my basic setup when I'm doing materials. So the most important things here are the color, which is connected to the image texture. We have the roughness, which is important, and I'll get to that in a minute. Clear coat is important if you're doing like plasticky stuff or really shiny stuff. That is an important thing. And then we have the normal, which is also important. Alpha can also be important if you're doing like, for example, like plants or anything that has transparent, then that's going to be really important. Subsurface is also important, but that's just kind of an extra thing, and it's optional. So basically what we're going to do is plug our image into the roughness. And basically when you have a roughness coming off of an image, it's going to take whatever the darkest colors are in that image, and the darker colors are going to be the shiniest, the lighter colors are going to be more rough. So as you can see, you can't really tell the difference here because everything's kind of the same color in this texture. So the way that you can change that is if you search for a color ramp. And a color ramp is kind of like a slider. Like I don't know how best to describe it, but you can try to get differences with your color ramp, and I'm not really seeing much difference. I think you can kind of see the difference here. So you can, it's really hard. This texture is very hard, but you can see that this part is more shiny than this part now. The next thing that you can do, you can add in a, actually that's not the one you want. You want a, what is it called? Contrast. You want a bright contrast node. And so basically this, here I can kind of show you visually. So this, what this looks like is you're going to add a lot of contrast. So this is like what the roughness shader will end up looking like. And I think that that's really good because it separates it. So we're going to stick, that one's already stuck in there, and then we're going to do this. So now you can really see the differences between these two. And you can also like dial it in. There we go. That's more what I want. So you can really see how these two things are reflecting differently. So something that you might wonder is like, well, if this is like a stone and this is like the mortar in between the stones, you would probably want the stone to be more reflective than the mortar. So a way to fix that is if you just search for an invert node, and then that's going to fix that problem for you. Well, now you can't really see it. I don't know why you can't see it now. Why is this complicated? There, you can kind of see it. Alright, so there we have our roughness set up. So the next thing that we're going to set up is the bump map. And this thing, I think this can get hard on your computer if you have a lot of them. So just be careful with that. Alright, so we're going to plug our image texture into our normal. And we're going to search for a bump node. You're going to make sure that the normal, or that the image is plugged into the height. And already we can see this. So basically this just separates stuff based on like their lightness and darkness, and puts little like height, like quote unquote height. It basically changes the way that light reflects on stuff without actually adding geometry. So it's very, very cool. I love that you can do this. I already like how that looks, but if you want, you can invert it, and you can also add a color ramp to it to dial in stuff however you want. I personally think it looks good how it is, though. Alright, so that is basically how I would go about making a stone texture. But if you want, like, other looking textures, like, say, what if you wanted to do something like cloth or wood? All those things are going to look different than this, or metal or something. So for doing a cloth, or like anything organic, I would recommend adding subsurface. Even to wood, I even add subsurface to wood, but basically what subsurface does, actually, let me go ahead and make a second one. So basically what subsurface does is it adds, here, I'll extrude it so that you guys can see it. It adds a bit more like transparency to it. Another thing is in the settings, I normally set it all of these to 0.2, and that just kind of makes it look better. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of change this to look more like a cushion. So we're gonna search for a color ramp. So a color ramp, it can be used to dial stuff in, and it can also just be used to color stuff. So I'm gonna just use it to make this red. So I'm gonna, this is gonna end up being, well, I need to, come on. I don't know. I'm spending too much time on this. It doesn't really matter what color it is. Okay. So, yes, subsurface is very important. You're also going to want to end up plugging whatever your texture is into both. That's why it was looking pale. Just to make sure that you keep the color. My mind has gone blank. So on stuff like cloth, you're probably going to want to keep the specular pretty low, or if you keep it high, you're just going to want everything to generally be the same color. I mean the same roughness. Cuz it's not like metal or tile or anything. It's just kind of all the same consistency. I'm not really sure that I would change anything else about this. So there we have that. That's cloth. I would say for wood, wood is kind of the mix of those two things, but what I would do is keep the specular up, keep it pretty distinct like this, and then also just have subsurface on. So let me think. Metallic, obviously you just want to turn, or like for metal textures, you just want to turn metallic on, and basically everything else is the same. So the next thing, I only have a couple more things to talk about, but I should have put this in the modifier section, but I forgot to. So basically, if you want, just for a couple extra things, if you want to add some sort of like bevel or just smooth something out, you have two options. So one of them is adding subdivision surface. You also can't see it because the simplify's on. Alright, you have subdivision surface, which just makes things look smoother. It adds like fake geometry to it, kind of. So you would obviously want this to make things look round, but then they're going to lose their shape. So what you're going to do is hop over to this mode, go to select sharp edges. So then you, that should hopefully select all the right things for you. It kind of depends on the thing. And then you're going to hit 0.99 if you want something beveled. And there you can see the difference. Hello. There we go. This is like no bevel at all, and then 0.99 is the bevel. You can also do 0.80, which you can't really see the difference here, but for like higher poly models, 0.80 versus 0.99 is gonna make a difference. The second thing that you can do is hit W and go to shade smooth, and that kind of like fills out some of those extra faces that you see. But you might have a problem with that because it does some kind of weird looking stuff. You might like it, like I think for cloth it looks nice, but for other stuff you definitely don't want these weird shadows going on. So to fix that, you can go to this triangle thingy, go to normals, and hit auto smooth. And that just basically, if you go to shade flat, you can see that it adds that in without like dealing with the weird shadows. Okay, so the next random tip I have is just reuse assets, reuse textures, reuse models that you've made, because you don't want to go in and make the same tile floor every time you make a new FNAF set. Just reuse assets unless you want to go for a completely different look. The second random thing is if you have a lot of stuff going on in a file and then you decided to delete all of it, let's just say that I'm gonna delete all this now, you can go over to the cleanup and hit unused data blocks, and that will basically permanently delete whatever those things were, like the materials. I think the materials should be gone. Well, no, they're not gone. Why are they not gone? Clean up unused data blocks. Sometimes you have to hit it a couple times. Okay, it should be good, and we're going to save this as, hopefully it didn't overwrite my default scene. That would have been sad. We're going to save it, and we're going to open it back up again. Hopefully, yes, all the materials are gone. So basically it just permanently deletes stuff that you aren't using, and that can really help free up space in a file. I always do that whenever I'm like cleaning up after a set or something. So I think that is all that I was going to say. There were a couple things that I left out. I guess I can go over them now. I somehow left these out in the materials section. I'm going to keep this one short. So one thing that you're going to want to do for a lot of things is AO. I highly recommend adding this to characters. It basically just adds some nicer looking shadows and such going on. Let's see, you have no AO versus AO. I mean, you can't really see it here, but definitely add that if you're looking at characters. That's just something that helps make it look better. And the last quick thing is if you add, oh yeah, Shift A, by the way, to add stuff. Not that. Shift A, search. If you add a Voronoi texture, that is just like a preset texture. It looks like this. You can mess with the scale, no wait. You can mess with the randomness, and then you get cubes. If you, wait a second. Okay, I'm gonna have to do some messing around with this. I've done this before, and I don't know why it's not working now. It doesn't like me. Also, why is it not connected? I would like to know. Well, anyway, this is a failed tip, but you can mess around with a Voronoi texture, and if you turn the randomness to 0, then you should be able to get perfect squares, and that's just useful in making Minecraft textures. If you don't want to have to go and like mess around with the textures, you can just do that. And I don't know why it's not working for me now, but it usually works. So yes, that is my tutorial. And how long was I even recording? I don't know. Oh, 30 minutes. I was talking for 30 minutes. So here is your 30-minute tutorial. Goodbye. Have fun making sets. If you want me to do more of these, I'm thinking about doing a lighting one, and hopefully it won't be as long. But yes, goodbye.